Hey everyone, Phil Harvey here at Network X Americas in Irving, Texas, and joining me right now is Chris Pearson, who gave the opening salvo, the opening keynote. Chris is from 5G Americas. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So in your keynote, you were talking about where we are with 5G. So let's get right into it. What's the status?
What's the stat? Well, we're making great progress. I mean, we have 314 5G networks around the world. In the U.S., as an example, we have great penetration rates, and we are one of the leaders in 5G in the U.S. And so we're seeing great progress as we kind of move along from telco to technology companies, and looking at the future is very bright. But we still are at a crossroads. We have a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of things that we need to kind of plan and work together on.
Yeah, in your keynote, you talked about where, in baseball terms, where are we? I think that's maybe a good way to give our American audience a way to sort of picture it.
Yeah, absolutely. I said today, and I still believe, and I believe this, is that we're in the top of the fifth inning. And anyone that knows baseball knows it's a 9-inning baseball game. And so, we're looking at 5G Advanced now just starting to take place in a lot of our networks in the Americas and around the world. But also a baseball game is a baseball season is 162 games.
Right.
So it's not a sprint. I don't want to say it's a marathon because there's a lot that we need to get done, and I think that we're making progress, but we still have work to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of ebbs and flows in a baseball season too, and I think it's the getting back out there every day, every inning that makes a difference. So what are some of the kind of top agenda items? Like what needs to be done right now? You mentioned we have a lot of work to do. What is some of that work that's ongoing?
Yeah, so some of the work that the operators and the vendor community are doing obviously is putting in things like 5G standalone and making their spectrum assets out there in the coverage areas and things like that. But there's some real regulatory issues where we need to keep working together with U.S. federal agencies and so forth. And just as an example, Congress needs to put back the spectrum auction authority to the FCC. We need more mid-band spectrum in the United States, or we're going to fall behind. We also probably need less regulation and allow us to do more innovation in the mobile wireless sector. And you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, yeah, it's kind of the code word for we had this teeter-totter of uncertainty when it comes to the open internet regulations, depending on each administration. And so it's probably time, I would say probably time for the Congress to start to legislate what it means to have open internet rules and regulations.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's like with it turning back and forth every other administration, that just sort of almost encourages everybody to sit on the sidelines when they're not 100% sure if a new product they're going to roll out is going to step over the line or something like that.
Right.
I think it's the same sort of scenario with like U.S. privacy law, with data protection and stuff like that. Until something like that clears the Congress, we're just going to have an ebb and flow between administrations as to who takes it seriously and who doesn't, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and in mobile communications, if you look back at the history of us, we have had light touch regulation or somewhat unregulated, and we've been the innovators and the leaders when it comes to connectivity. I mean, look at your life or your children's life or my kid's life. Yeah. I mean, they rely on their mobile communications devices and connections. So we've done a great job on that, and we have a competitive marketplace already. So I just think it's that uncertainty that is a challenge, and again, I call it the teeter-totter of uncertainty, because it depends on the administration what's going to happen or might happen, and that's not good for the industry. You want the industry working with the government to plan for the future and do things to progress mobile communications, so the U.S. can be a leader in mobile communications, we can be a leader in technology, we can be a leader in jobs and economy. And if you do that, then you have a strong country.
Yeah, absolutely. With the other issue you mentioned was the Spectrum Authority with the FCC. Yeah. Can you, for those of us who aren't in the weeds with how spectrum is allocated in the country, what's the urgency around that? Like that's a big deal when that expired. How is that going to affect the wireless industry long term if it's not if it's not remedied soon?
Yeah, so the FCC is in charge of the allocation and spectrum auctioning of spectrum.
Yeah.
And the largest holder of spectrum is the federal government.
Right.
So NTIA under the State Department of Commerce, excuse me, handles actually all the federal agency spectrum and so forth. But when spectrum is allocated and identified, and the FCC is ready to put it out for what's called comments, and finally get to the point of auctioning it, they have to have auction authority from Congress. That has expired, so they don't have that ability right now. And if you want to be a leader in the world of mobile communications, which again leads into being a leader in technology, you need the FCC to have spectrum auction authority.
Okay.
So Congress needs to grant that again.
Yeah, and not to be a total tout for the industry, but man, how great is mid-band spectrum? I switched to a provider recently that has a generous amount, and my train ride to the airport has changed forever.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the past 3 or 4 years, bringing more mid-band spectrum out to the marketplace has been a game changer for the U.S. operators. And again, it helps the vendor partners and the vendor community. And we need a strong vendor community, again, to be a leader in technology around the world. But that mid-band spectrum has been really critical to us. But on the other hand, we need more. And if you look at us, you look at our papers on 5G Americas, our white papers on spectrum, we need more spectrum, especially in the mid-band area. And we need it to be planned, identified, allocated, and auctioned at some point. But it's just, we are in that moment of planning, and we need to do it now.
Yeah, and it really does speak to the digital divide issue as well, because that's one of the ingredients that can help us bridge that gap down the road. Before I let you go, any last sort of priorities from your from 5G America's members, or anything you're talking about here at this show?
Yeah, I think it's just really about the idea that we all need to collaborate and cooperate together.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of key wireless stakeholders, and it's not just the operators, it's not just the vendors, but it's also the governments, it's industry analysts, it's industry media. It's everyone coming together that are key stakeholders to say, hey, we can't be whack-a-mole, and here's a problem, here's an issue, and just whack, 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 whack. What we need is a plan for the future that incorporates all of us, and that will lead us to being a strong leader in mobile communications, technology, jobs, and the economy.
Excellent. Well, this is why this guy sets the table for us at this show. Chris Pearson, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you.
it.